Eight persons have been who were named as accused in an FIR over the alleged embezzlement of donations received at the Ram temple in Ayodhya have been arrested. What could be the fallout of this and what it means for the Bharatiya Janata Party as well as the RSS? To discuss this and much more, we have with us political science professor Chandrachud Singh, who teaches at Hindu College, Delhi University. We also have the political editor of ThePrint, DK Singh. Well, without much ado, I would like to first start with you, Mr. Singh. Is it or can we say, is it a blow to the overall Hindutva movement? Because a lot of people are using this to question all that was done in the name of constructing this temple.
Thank you, Neelam. Thank you for having me on your show. I agree to a large extent that this is a blot. This is a blot on, particularly on faiths of millions of Hindus, both in India and abroad. It is something which is very saddening, very condemnable, and very unfortunate. It should not have happened, and it should never happen again. That said, I don't think this will dampen the spirit of the Hindus. I think this is something that Hindus and Hindu management bodies, particularly of the temples, must learn a lesson from and move forward in terms of ensuring that the faith systems are always remain intact. So, in that sense, yes, it does give an opportunity to people to prick a hole or prick something in this whole fantastic narrative of Hindutva and developmentalism. It again brings back to the sorry state of affairs that no matter what you do, we are prone to corruption, and corruption is endemic in that sense. I do agree to that, but Hindutva and Hinduism has a long history, and there have been attempts to malign it, both by outsiders and some unfortunate, papis, as we may call them. But we have always been resilient, and Hindus will have always bounced back. This is something that will actually give them a lesson, and perhaps they'll emerge more stronger.
Right. I also interviewed the Vishwa Hindu Parishad International President Alok Kumar, and he talked about political conspiracy also being one of the factors. So, do you think with elections all set to take place in Uttar Pradesh next year, do you also see this linked to that? Is there some sort of a political controversy also here?
Well, certainly, the age in which we live, religion impacts politics, and politics also impacts religion. So, I am not denying that. However, we must understand that this is not a state failure. In politics, in the simplest term, is related to the functioning and governance of the state. I don't think it's a failure of the state. I don't think here the state has hobnobbed, or the state has got into acts which may bring bad repute to it. It is basically about how we as a community, how we as the practitioners of Hindu religion need to look into how we manage our temples, how we manage our trusts, how we look into all that. So I do think that there will be attempts made to politicize it. In fact, I've been on TV on many other channels, and I've been talking constantly about it. The mere fact that the media is running it every day in almost all prime time shows, digital channels are all talking about it, means that the UP election is around the corner, maybe next year, and so therefore they will try and do something to blame the BJP for all this. But I don't think the BJP is to be blamed for it. I don't think the state government is to be blamed for it. I don't think that the union central government is to be blamed for it. It's a matter of trust. Yes, the trust should have been very precautious. The trust should have been very transparent in its acting. It's something on the trust. I also know, and you might say that the trust was, at the end of it, it's a public trust, and therefore accountable to the public. I know that. And yes, I agree that the trust should have been very transparent and must have taken all precautions. And therefore, the trust would need to be reconstituted, reworked. People with credibility have to be brought. Some people who need to take moral responsibility and need to get out of this. But I don't think this will have much impact on the UP elections, given the fact that it has happened much earlier then the elections. So maybe all the hype about it will soon slowly gradually settle down. And I don't think I mean, to name the Samajwadi Party, which would try its best to take something out of it. I don't see them, at least at this point in time, being strong enough to carry this forward. uh, that's my opinion at this point in time. Yes.
But you mentioned that the state government cannot be, you cannot pinpoint the blame at the center or the state, but the trust was also constituted by the center. I mean, when we are talking about Mr. Champat Rai or Anil Mishra, these are all functionaries of the Vishwa Hindu Parishad. They all come from they follow the same ideology, come from the same Sangh Parivar. So at some point the perception is that everyone is connected.
See, there are two different aspects to it. I mean, yes, in a normal parallels, well, we can see everything is connected with each other. However, if we're doing serious analysis of what happened and where to affix responsibilities, then normally, because every road then travels to Rome, doesn't mean that you carry all the blames to the center or to the government. See, in our constitutional systems, the state can interfere in religious matters. If you read the final prints of 25 to 28, the state can interfere. Now, this trust was set up on the call of the Supreme Court by the center. To that extent, the center's involvement is there. I think even the state government has its representation in the trust. So therefore, formally, the state government is also involved. But the center or the state does not necessarily deal with the day-to-day statutorily functioning of the trust. It is left to the people who are best supposed to be managing it, right? Now, however, that this thing has come out, I think the center and the state will have to frame its own setup in terms of how to deal with it to ensure that at least in future such a thing does not happen. But to blame them, or to just to say that they are also equally responsible, would be a bit harsher. I'm not saying unfair, but would be a bit harsher on them.
Right, Nipendra Mishra, who is also the chairman of the construction committee of the Ram Mandir, in an interview with us also, he said, there is a need for having a CEO to manage the affairs of the trust. Alok Kumar, who I, interviewed today, he also said that it should be a CEO. Whether it should be a former IS officer or not is something that he was open to. But do you also think that it requires some sort of interference by the state or the center in terms of running the affairs of the trust much more smoothly and efficiently?
I would largely agree to that point. I would largely agree to that point, and I would only give the benefit to a trust which is relatively younger. I mean, you also have examples of the Vaishno Devi Shrine Board. You also have Temple Trust in the down south. So the state can get into it, and the state, I'm sure, will be a bit proactive in terms of ensuring, because this is also a matter of faith. I mean, remember, when it hurts the people, the state has to get into either ways, right? When it causes some worry to the people, the state cannot simply sit back and watch and say, well, we have nothing to do. So I think some kind of some kind of an administrative hole up, some kind of attempts to ensure accountability in the function, because remember, the Ram Mandir is not just a simple Ram Mandir. It's a matter of pride for India. It's a matter which is now globally known all over the world. It's a matter which also sends goosebumps to every practicing Sanatani Hindu. So I think the state government and the central government will have to take some measures. Now, what measures they will do, I mean, well, there's no dearth of experts. I mean, and I have nobody to point out what they should be doing. But yes, ensuring accountability. For example, the CEO was not allowed to come in. Those attempts now speak. Remember, we can, at the hindsight, go back and say, well, this should have been done, that should have been done. Correct, that should have been done. Now, it was not done because, remember, these people were involved in decades with the movement and with the construction of the temple. So perhaps to start with, that trust was bestowed upon them and people trusted them, right? They should have come very clearer on that. They should have been very watchful, very careful, knowing pretty well that there was no margin of error. So that is why those attempts are very condemned. I mean, those actions are condemnable, to say the least. But you can only move forward from here. And I'm sure some arrests have been made. I've come to know that the Secretary General has already resigned from there. There's another one who's been arrested. So the SIT had been constituted. The FIRs have been filed now. So I think the criminal proceeding will take over from here. In fact, this is what the state should do: ensure that nobody is above law and that law remains same for every one of them.
Right. We have already pointed out that the SIT was constituted. The mandate that it was given, it was by the Uttar Pradesh government. Even if some trust members are punished, do you think, in the long run, Hindus or the devotees will remain suspicious of the larger design in the future, whether it comes to Mathura Kashi, or like when if a similar movement is started for that, do you think it has sort of shaken the faith of Hindus?
I don't think so. I mean, it does. It's a matter of worry, as I said. As I said, it's a saddening state of affairs there. I told you to start with, it's really condemnable. But I mean, I'm not trying to dilute it in any ways. But fact of the matter is, this has happened everywhere. I mean, look at the Vatican, for example. There has been an involvement of money laundering there as well, and not, in the 1980s and even in the early 2020s. Look at the Waqf vote, for example. In many cases, there have been involvement of Waqf members in some very spurious, activities. And then you could say this: there's nothing, there's no religion in that sense, and there's no religious activity, public religious activity, which is kind of not above board in that sense. So some things here and there would happen everywhere. At the end of the day, religious activities are all managed by humans, and so therefore this lalach and human craving for money and glory and fame, the Hobbesian principle, which says that it ceases only in death, will continue as long as there are humans. But the fact of the matter is, that is where we need to ensure that people of highest credibility, people of highest acceptance are put into those systems. Because remember, if these start falling, it will be difficult for people to survive and live in community. Religion, at the end of the day, and religious practices also bring a lot of solace. It also brings a lot of peace. Otherwise, we would be left as isolated beings. So I don't think this will result in situation where people will stop practicing Hinduism, or Hinduism would be defamed for centuries to come. No, this is something which has happened, is saddening, condemnable. This also exposes vulnerabilities, and I think it's time to learn the lessons and move on.
Professor Chandru Singh, if I may come in here, you're talking about the faith of the people. As Alok Kumar, the international president of the VHP, told Neelam in an interview, they had collected 3,300 crores as donations for the temple. Now, as Nipin Mishra, the construction committee chief, he says that we spent about 1,800 crores on temple constructions. 1,500 crores is still left. The larger picture here is, if the VHP collected 3,300 crores for 12.5 crore households, now they'll all be wondering what happened to our money. And then Alok Kumar says, which is quite interesting, that from 12.5 crore households, we collected money only in checks. I don't know how many households in rural areas you checks, but that side. This lurking suspicion that the money I gave as a believer for the construction of the temple has not reached where it is meant to. Now the arrests, they are all small fries you have arrested so far. There is no transparency. This is what you are telling so far. We don't know what the preliminary report of the SIT has said, what the final report will say. But if you are arresting or examining only those small flies, it may not actually gel with the people. They may not actually trust you, because if you're talking about hundreds of crores being siphoned off, these small trust employees or people around Champat Rai and others, some former driver, some former banker who would be kind of counting and collecting money, and if you arrest them, it cannot be brushed under the carpet like that. There has to be a much more comprehensive inquiry, and
It should not be
convince
brushed aside. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I agree with you in its entirety. It cannot be, and it should not be, and it will not be. I have deep faith in the system, and at least in the political system, that it would be not brushed aside, and it would not be brushed inside the carpet. Now, however, once the system of law takes over, it has its own pace at which it goes ahead. So, to simply sit back in a TV studio or maybe on a Zoom chat and say that, well, this person should be arrested and that person should be arrested, would be kind of pushing it too speedily, and maybe that may not be, that may even become very counterintuitive. So the law has to take its course. And I agree that the law must reach to the highest and the most powerful of the supposed people who were running the system. And there cannot be any exception to that. Be it Mr. Rai or be it Mr. Mishra, there cannot be any exception to the general rule, because all those who were involved and those who were actively involved must be probed thoroughly. The probe must reach its logical end. In fact, if it reaches its logical end, that is the only time, that's the only way in which perhaps the Hindu belief can be restored. So that is why this, as I said, the state doesn't have any complicity in it. But now that it has broken out, now that the news is out in public, it is much more important for the state to get deeper into it, cleanse the rot once for all, and so that the faith, which is a matter of immense respect, I mean, with the faith and belief of the Hindus, can be restored immediately. So that is why the state must act, and it must be seen to be acting in that sense.
There are some questions here. Now we talk about the role of the state. Let's talk about the role of the government. Of course, the trust was instituted as per the orders of the Supreme Court. But who constituted that trust? That was the Union Cabinet. Who were nominated on the trust? Now, 12 out of 15 members were nominated by the Government of India. Now, look at the trust members. You have 3 IAS officers. Of course, I'm not talking about people from other fields, Shankaracharya and others. I'm talking about on the trust. Now, if you look at it, you have the former Principal Secretary to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is the Construction Committee Chief. You have an IAS officer who was the Additional Secretary in the Home Ministry before, just a few days back, he was made the CBSE chairperson. Then you have Ayodhya DM, there is another IAS officer. What were they doing? Was there no monitoring, no supervision? If the government has nominated them, government just cannot wash its hands off it.
See, that's where I'll give you 2 arguments and then let you to think about it. So argument number 1, the President of India appoints, remember, the members of the civil services, right? The President of India appoints ministers, and ministers get caught in corruption cases. IS people and then other bureaucrats get caught in corruption cases, right? The blame is on the people who get into it, not on the person who appointed. So the President of India is not expected to resign, and then the blame doesn't get onto her or his office. That's one. The second argument is even more simplistic, and has to get into the way our constitutional and political system function. The state is supposed to be morbid when it comes to the religious affairs. It has to not stay away, but really not get too much actively involved. So the IS officers that you're talking about are there. It's like the emergency light, right? So when the electricity goes off, the light actually comes on, isn't it? So that's where the role of the state is. In fact, the mere fact that these IS officers, as they were on the board, stayed away from it, actually establishes the propriety of the constitutional norms under which we function. They are not supposed to be involved in the day-to-day functioning. Yes, now that something has broken out, it is incumbent on them. It is incumbent on all those who are involved, and particularly from the government side, to ensure that justice is done and justice is shown to have been done. So, I agree there. But to say that the trust was constituted by the Prime Minister or the Cabinet, and therefore the Cabinet and the Prime Minister is responsible, I would be, stretching it too far.
No. I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting any complicity of the state. I'm not suggesting any complicity of the government. I'm talking about accountability.
Yes.
If you nominate those people, you have to take accountability for what happened, and you have to speak out. From the central government, as we speak today, as we discuss, we have not heard a single word from any top functionary of the government. It's just a SIT which has been formed by the state government there. We haven't heard anything from the center so far.
Well, that's something which is something that also surprises me. Of course, the center should have spoken, and I'm sure they are watching the developments as they take shape. Because remember, when the center speaks, it's not that they will speak unless they have all the information. I think there's something is unraveling there. Once it settles down, I'm sure the center would also speak, and the government and their representatives would also speak up. I don't think that they will be silent on this. I don't see the nature of this government is such that it will not remain silent on it. But yes, it will speak when the appropriate time comes to speak. And because it also has to have everything in hand. The SIT has just submitted an interim report. The report is going to be a bit exhaustive one. The FIRs are now taking place. So I think once the information gets in and everything is collated, I think it's then, because remember, if the center speaks, and when the center speaks, it will be the most authentic form of communication to the people as well. So I think let's not jump the gun. Let's have some patience, and I think the center would also open up on this as well.
Well, we have been looking forward to just a few tweets of condemnation. That's all for whatever has happened, because that is proved so far. Coming to the other point, you were talking about the government's role in running these religious institutions, temples. We don't know. It's the case in the Supreme Court. Now, the RSS has been taking it up in a big way that government should have no role in running temples. And they have issues like you have so many cases in high courts. Finally, the last time the Supreme Court had said that, okay, fine. First, they had instructed those petitioners to go back to the High Court. But just a couple of weeks back, the Supreme Court decided to take a call on this, and we would be expecting a verdict anytime soon, whether the government should be coming into it. But that's contradictory. When you have the RSS going on top, saying that the government should not be getting into the affairs, suddenly you see these demands, I mean, including from Nipen Mishra, that it should be, the trust should be run as there should be a CEO, there should be something like Tirumala Tirupati Trust, TTD kind of model. You want more and more involvement of the government in running these institutions. How justified is it?
Well, the RSS has its own point to argue. And the RSS is justified in arguing the way it wants to argue and it wishes to argue, right? And that's basically because RSS is a cultural body. RSS is not a constitutional body. We go by the Constitution. And what does the Constitution say? The Constitution very clearly says that the state will normally stay away. There will be a matter of principled equidistance, as we say, in defining and understanding secularism in this country. However, notwithstanding all this, and please remember, the state staying away in its entirety is something which will have to be looked into in the kind of context in which India became independent, right? So there was some kind of a religiosity which eventually became, which was responsible for the birth of two different states as well. So for the state to literally stay back and come what may, never get into it, is something which is not going to happen. In fact, the movement all over the world has been where the state is increasingly, even in those countries where the state was supposed to stay back, you'll see that the state has been actually moving in and meddling into religious affairs. Luckily in our case, the state has actually been very watchful and very cautious in terms of meddling with religion and religious-based issues. Now, as far as the RSS and the government is concerned, well, there is some kind of influence here and there, but the government operates under constitutional norms and principles. And as long as those constitutional norms and principles remain, I think the setting up of these trusts, particularly, would be guided and governed by them, rather than by the wishes of other bodies. So in that case, the Waqf board has its own wishes. In other cases, there are other bodies having their own wishes. We cannot simply, they have every right to demand what they want to demand. But will we be governed by those wishes, or should we be governed by the constitutional norm, is something that we need to think about.
Mr. Singh, we have spoken a lot about how the government, whether the state or the center, has got not much got to do with the affairs of the trust. But we saw the consecration ceremony of Ram Mandir, how PM sort of led from the front. So, it has also been often described as the dream project of the BJP. It was there in their manifesto. In most of his speeches, this is cited as one of the biggest achievements of the BJP government. So, looking at this entire, controversy, how do you see this affecting or impacting, if at all, or denting Prime Minister Narendra Modi's image, if at all?
Well, I don't think it's denting his image at all. I'm sure Prime Minister Modi would be very unhappy and very sad, as an average Hindu is sad and unhappy on the developments. If the developments as they are, and as they prove out to be, I'm sure Prime Minister Modi would also be equally saddened as a practicing Sanatani Hindu, right? Look, we all are in multiple roles. The prime minister became the prime minister much later. The Ayodhya movement started much earlier, remember, and he was also on Advani's Rath, the famous Rath Yatra that had happened. So remember that person, the prime minister as a person, would be deeply saddened by it, and the prime minister as prime minister would naturally be thinking about how best to ensure that this does not happen again, because this is a pet project. This was a pet project of the BJP, and remember, I'm very clear that the BJP is not going to abdicate it either. The BJP will have to face this inconvenient truth of what has happened, and the BJP has to become stronger and gear up for the responses, and that can happen only and only when some actions happen there, some heads roll down. I think those things are something which need to watch. The prime minister's image will not be dented by this, because deep inside, the credibility is much more stronger today. And if you look at, had it happened immediately after the election, assume this, where the BJP's vote had, the seats had gone down. If that had happened then, well, a lot of things would have happened. But today, 2.5 years later, the BJP is not what it was in 2024. It is stronger. The regional parties are actually unraveling, and there is a strong, sense of nationalism which is now again spreading all over. Look at all states. And I was just thinking of drafting something, and maybe I'll write down in a new piece, because this whole thesis of ethnicity, diversity, and regional parties as the vehicles on which these sentiments are controlled and collaborated is all moving out. Look at any states and you'll find that all regional parties are in a disarray. So which means effectively that there is a larger understanding of nationalism, and maybe we could discuss it much later, but this has happened with all societies which are on the takeoff stage. So as societies mature and as they grow and as we move towards supposedly as the ideal of Viksit Bharat, I think the larger picture of nationalism and developmentalism is coming back, and I don't see any regional party worth the name, driving its force in any of the states. Don't bring Samajwadi Party and Lalu Prasad Yadav's party in as ethnic parties. They are not ethnic parties. They are caste-based family parties, and so they are surviving for the time being. But even they will be swept away very soon. So I don't think anything is happening to Narendra Modi's charisma or to his personality or to his personal image as such. But if all this is sorted out, if justice is brought and done, I think this will only enhance Narendra Modi's own reputation, and this is going to embolden his leadership skills much further.
So, I agree with you. It's not going to impact the prime minister's image in any for whatsoever way, because he still enjoys a very clean image, and everybody knows that. And the prime minister won't be supervising these things directly. There is a question of accountability of the government, but as you said, government trust, you can segregate the two. But the larger question is the people, who are the flag bearers of the temple movement, the champions of the temple movement. For them, it has come as a big blow. Because next time you go to villages, fine, we want some donations for, say, Krishna Janmabhoomi, or something is happening in Gyanvapi. There you may get the blowback. So that trust deficit that this particular controversy might have induced may carry on for a long time. It's not going to be going away anytime soon.
It will carry on permanently. I would not even say long time. permanently if nothing is done. But if something is done and it's done and people are convinced that it was done effectively, and it will bring back the credibility. I mean, see, it happens many a times. I'll tell you a small story of a Panditji who used to come to our house to perform the puja. And we got to know that he was involved in some kind of a deep racket. That didn't absolve me of my faith in Hinduism. We removed that Panditji and the next Panditji starts coming. We are much more flexible and we are much more deeper. Hindu civilization and Hindus, the roots of Hindu civilization and Hindu religion goes, centuries back. So I don't think this will create a permanent scar. Yes, it's a blot, it's a temporary blot, and this blot needs to be removed by immediate, fast, effective, satisfying, credible action. And I think both the systems at the center and the state, not just because the elections are around. Elections will be won, elections will be lost. I'm not bothered about that. I am more bothered about the state as it is today and how it improves from here. I'm more bothered about the greatness of my own religion. I'm more bothered about the kind of things people say about Hinduism. Remember, Hinduism is a religion which has been much more eulogized by non-Hindus abroad as well. So I'm more concerned about that. How do we come out of this is something that is required to be watched. And I'm sure the resilience that runs so deep in us will allow us to come back on the top again.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Singh, for this deep insight and for being there and sharing it with our viewers. Thank you, DK sir. And we will keep you updated with the latest developments on this particular case also. So please do keep and track the print website as well as YouTube. Thank you so much for joining.